Good evening and welcome to the Connecticut Department of Transportation's public information meeting for project number 148212, the rehabilitation of bridge number 03225, Route 150 over an unnamed brook in the town of Wallingford. My name is Susan Morneau and I'm a project engineer with the Connecticut Department of Transportation. I would like to welcome everyone who's taken the time to tune in for tonight's presentation. We hope this will be informative and we're able to answer all your questions and concerns so that by the time we are done, you'll have a better understanding of our project. Before I get into the presentation and introduce the project team, I would like to go over a few housekeeping items and explain tonight's format. Our presentation will last approximately 15 minutes, and once it's completed, we will host a live question and answer session. You will have three means of communicating with us during the live Q&A session. You can send an email, leave a voicemail, or if you are watching this on MS Teams, you can post your question in the chat field to the right of your screen. The project team will monitor the project email, phone, and chat periodically during the presentation and Q&A session. The questions asked by any of these methods will be posted to the MS Teams Q&A chat window. We will read all the questions out loud for the project team to answer. You can ask questions at any time during the presentation, but we will answer these during the live Q&A session at the end of the presentation. As I mentioned, the three means of communicating with the project team will be by email, which is dotproject148-212@ct.gov. Again, that's dotproject148-212@ct.gov, or by telephone at 860-944-1111. Or by chat on the MS Teams live event chat. In this format, you can ask a question by clicking on the little question mark, which is shown as Q&A. This will bring up your live event Q&A field. Next, select the Ask a Question button at the bottom right of the screen, and a field will pop up where you can type your question. Then you either hit Enter or the little arrow button to send. You can also check the box at the bottom to post your question anonymously if you prefer. There will be a slight delay, but eventually your question will appear in the featured section with all the other questions asked tonight. We also have the project webpage link where a recording of tonight's entire presentation, including the Q&A session, will be stored. The webpage will also contain the same information that I previously explained on how to provide comments or ask questions. Lastly, please remember the comment period to ask questions or provide comments will be open through November 5th, 2020 via either email or telephone. The MS Team chat function is only available during tonight's live Q&A session. We would like you to know that no person shall, on the basis of race, color, or national origin, be excluded from participation or subject to discrimination in the development of this project, and that there is a civil rights flyer available. We would also greatly appreciate it if you could fill out a survey the department has through SurveyMonkey. The results of this survey will help us improve these public meetings going forward. The links to both the Civil Rights Flyer and the survey are located on the previously mentioned project webpage. Thank you for bearing with me while I went over the ground rules. I would now like to begin the presentation by introducing the project team. With the Connecticut Department of Transportation, we have Bart Sweeney, Division Chief of Bridges, Robbie Barakat, CE Bridge Principal Engineer, Louis Baccio, CE Bridge Project Manager, and again, I am Susan Morneau, CE Bridge Project Engineer. Matt Giannakopoulos, Right-of-Way Coordinator in the Office of Rights-of-Way. Matt will speak a little later and provide an overview of the procedures followed by the department for right-of-way impacts to properties affected by this project. Close Jensen & Miller is the consultant liaison engineer on this project and will work with the department to administer the project. Mark Levac is the project manager for CJM and Sal Cunho is the project engineer. The designer for this project is Stantec Consulting. Representing Stantec tonight, we have design engineers Andy Lassard and Justin Abate. You will hear from Stantec later this evening as they explain the proposed project. Here is a map showing the project location. The arrow is pointing to the bridge, which is located just south of the intersection of Parker Farms Road and North Turnpike Road. The Wilbur-Cross Parkway is located to the east of the project. Here is an aerial photo of the project location on Route 150, which is otherwise known as North Turnpike Road. Bridge number 03225 is shown in the yellow circle. The next two slides will show the project area at street level. In this first slide, we are looking north on Route 150. As you can see from the photo, Route 150 carries one lane of traffic in each direction with a left turn lane for the northbound traffic. In the second slide, we are looking south along Route 150. The roadway width is approximately 34.5 feet. The average daily traffic along North Turnpike Road is approximately 16,100 vehicles. This is based on the 2017 CT-DOT traffic log. This next slide depicts a plan view of the existing bridge. The unnamed brook is shown in blue and the existing bridge is shown in yellow. The existing structure was built in the 1860s and is a stone masonry arch which was extended with reinforced concrete extensions in 1929 when the road was widened. It is approximately 85 feet long. Following are a couple more photos of the existing bridge. First is a photo looking upstream at the bridge. This photo is looking downstream at the bridge. Now we will discuss the reasons for the project. The photos on the next two slides will help you understand why the bridge needs to be rehabilitated. The photos on this slide show the deteriorated condition of the masonry arch and the masonry wing walls. The photos on this slide show the erosion of the embankment. I will now turn over the presentation to Justin Abate from Stantec, who will explain the proposed project to rehabilitate the bridge.
Thank you, Susan. Good evening, everyone. My name is Justin Abate with Stantec Consulting Services. I'm going to present some of the proposed work as it relates to this project. Based on a review of the site conditions on this project, it is recommended that new precast concrete retaining walls be installed along both sides of Route 150 in order to reduce and stabilize the slope of the embankments. This will allow for a wider roadway with proper lane widths, as well as the addition of a new concrete sidewalk at the east side of Route 150. Metal beam guide rail will be installed at all four ends of the retaining walls, and the roadway will be repaved within the limits of the project. Here we have an elevation view of the proposed structure. The proposed retaining walls will be made of precast concrete segments, secured in place by steel piles. The retaining wall will be topped with a cast-in-place concrete cap with an open metal bridge rail mounted on top. Repairs will be made to the stone masonry arch by filling voids and repointing the masonry, and the same repairs would also apply to the masonry walls throughout the structure. Also worth mentioning is the masonry wing wall at the southeastern corner of the structure will be reconstructed. Here we have a view of the proposed cross-section of the structure. This section here is cut lengthwise along the existing culvert, looking in the direction of travel along Route 150. The important thing to highlight here is that the width of the roadway will be increased to accommodate two 12-foot travel lanes, one in each direction, as well as one 11-foot turning lane for cars making a left-hand turn from Route 150 onto Parker Farms Road. The widening of the road will also allow for a new 5-foot concrete sidewalk you see on the east side. The proposed structure would be built using a staged construction approach. The retaining walls would be installed in two separate stages in order to minimize impacts to traffic during construction. This would allow for 2 lanes of traffic to be maintained, 1 lane in each direction of travel along Route 150 throughout the duration of the project. The temporary lanes would be a minimum of 11 feet wide with 1-foot shoulders. Any repairs needed to the stone masonry below can be done concurrently with the work along Route 150. For the first stage of construction, work will be done along the east side of Route 150, as you can see here by the area shaded in red color. To perform this work, traffic will be shifted to the west slightly to accommodate the work area at the east side. During this stage, the proposed retaining wall, the metal guide rail, and the metal bridge rail will all be installed along the east side. For the second stage of construction, traffic will be shifted to the east side of the road, where the proposed retaining wall is in place from the previous stage, to accommodate the work area at the west side of the roadway. Here, the western retaining wall will be installed, along with the associated guide rail and bridge rail. As mentioned before, The work needed below to repair and repoint the stone masonry arch and walls can be done independently of the work along Route 150 during either stage of construction. As you can see in this photo, there are aerial facilities that run along the east side of Route 150. These overhead lines cross over the roadway right at the intersection and then continue up Parker Farms Road. There are also underground utilities in the vicinity of this project that include telecommunication lines, a water main, a sewer main, and 2 gas mains. It is anticipated that the overhead lines, the gas mains, and the sewer main will need to be relocated to accommodate the work on this project. Coordination with the utility companies is ongoing at this time, and this coordination will continue to take place as we progress through design. Best management practices will be used during construction, and we would also be required to obtain environmental permits to do work near the waterway. This will ensure that impacts to the brook are minimized due to construction activities. Now concerning the rights-of-way, the red lines you see on this drawing represent the state right-of-way. Impacts to private property are anticipated, which would consist of a partial take to reconstruct the southeastern stone masonry wall, an easement to install railing, as well as a right to grade. Also, temporary easements will be needed for access to the construction areas. Now I'll turn it over to Matt Giannakopoulos to discuss the DOT rights-of-way process.
My name is Matt Giannakopoulos, and I am a project coordinator with the department's Division of Rights-of-Way. It is our office's responsibility to acquire the property rights needed for transportation projects. The proposed project design requires the acquisition of property rights, so I'd like to give a brief overview of the department's right-of-way acquisition process. Please keep in mind, though, that the specific impacts are still being fine-tuned and may change as the design progresses. Any property rights that will be required will be acquired in accordance with Connecticut General Statutes Sections 13A-73 and 13A-98E. Whenever there is federal money used in any aspect of a project, the department must adhere to the Uniform Relocation Assistance and Real Property Acquisition Policies Act of 1970 as amended. Once the design has moved to the point where we are ready to begin the acquisition process, each affected property owner will receive a formal letter of intent to acquire from our office, along with a property map which depicts the exact property rights to be acquired. At that point, our office will determine the fair market value of those property rights and use that value to establish an offer of just compensation. That offer will be sent out to the property owner in writing, and a right-of-way agent will be available to meet with the property owner and explain the project, go over the specific impacts to their property, and explain the state's offer. The property owner will have a reasonable time, typically at least 30 days, to consider the state's offer and enter into negotiations. If an agreement is reached, the states will prepare all the necessary paperwork and record the deed and the property map on the town land records. However, if negotiations reach an impasse, in order to keep everything on schedule, the department may acquire the necessary property rights through its power of eminent domain. In that event, the state files a notice of condemnation in the Superior Court, along with a monetary deposit in the amount of the state's offer. The owner would have 6 months from that date to file an appeal if they felt that the state's offer was inadequate. Whether or not the owner chooses to appeal, the money that was deposited in the court is available to be withdrawn by the owner, subject to the discretion of the Superior Court. I know a lot of people, when they hear the phrase eminent domain, thinks that it means the state just takes their property for $1. However, the owners are entitled to at least the state's original offer of just compensation, and the state only takes title to the property rights that are needed for the project. If there are any questions regarding the department's right-of-way acquisition process, I'd be happy to address them once the presentation has concluded.
Thanks, Matt. This is Susan Warno again, and this next slide shows our estimated project cost and schedule. I would just like to let everyone know that we are currently at a little less than 30% complete in the design process, and at this time, we are anticipating construction to begin in the spring of 2022 and be complete in the fall of that same year. We are currently estimating a construction cost of approximately $1.7 million, which will be paid for with 80% federal funds and 20% state funds. No funding will be required from the town. Please note that the schedule at this point is preliminary and is predicated upon the availability of funding. That concludes the formal presentation portion of tonight's presentation. Thank you for your time and attention. At this point, I will turn things over to Sal Cunyo of CJM, who will be the moderator for the question and answer session. Please note that we will stay live as long as questions are coming in.
Thank you, Sue. Good evening, everyone. I am Sal Cunyo with Close, Jensen, and Miller, and I will be the facilitator for the question and answer portion of this presentation. First of all, I would like to thank all of you for attending our presentation of this project. As Ms. Murnau indicated, we are early in the design portion of the project, and we want to engage the public and the town's participation so that we can assure that concerns and comments or questions are taken into account in the successful completion of the project. I want to remind everyone that there are 3 ways of submitting questions or comments. First, by email to dotproject148-212@ct.gov. Again, dotproject148-212@ct.gov. Also, through the telephone, the number is 860-944-1111. Additionally, by chat through the Teams live event chat option, and we will respond to the questions and comments as we receive them. So please, anything that comes to mind, ask a question. We will be here until there are no further questions, as Sue said. Additionally, you may submit questions until November 5th by email or by telephone. Lastly, I want to point out that this presentation will be posted at the DOT website for access at any time. I want to point out and encourage everyone to please take the brief survey that we offer of the presentation at the link found on the project website. This survey will help us improve the presentation and the ways of reaching to the public in future presentations. Again, I also want to thank everyone for attending at this point, and we are open for questions. Again, I stress, please take the survey, which will help us in the future. The survey can be linked through the DOT web page for the project, as shown on the slide here, which is at the DOT Wallingford 148-212. I see that we have received a question. The question is, what is the reasoning for sidewalk on the east side? I drive through every day and see people on the other side of the road. Basically, the town requested that we add the sidewalk to the project. They had originally mentioned it to add it to the west side of the road. However, in looking at the site, we noticed that the approaching sidewalk is on the east side of the road, south of our bridge location. And additionally, there is a crosswalk along with a pedestrian actuation signal on the north side of the intersection. Therefore, it became easier to add the sidewalk on the east side of the project all the way to the signal. As you look at the west side of the road, if we were to put the sidewalk in there, there's very little room because of the steepness of the slopes and the entrance to the bridge from the brook. So there's not enough room to do it in there. We'll see that we have another question coming in. Where exactly is this bridge again? The bridge is located just south of the intersection with Parker's Farms Road, not more than probably 40 to 50 feet of the intersection, very close. It's located north of the driveway to the condo complex on the east side of the road. I have another question that has come in, and it's an email question. The email question asks, how will the southeast wing wall be reconstructed? What material will be used? Andy, would you like to answer that, please?
Sure thing, Sal. Hi, this is Andy Lassard from Stantec. As Justin mentioned in his presentation, this wing wall is going to be reconstructed. The intent at this time at our 30% design is to reconstruct the wing wall as is with a masonry type structure. The intent is, again, to match the existing that's out there.
Thank you, Andy. We have a phone question that has come in. The question is, with the turning lane for Parkers Farms Road being removed during construction, how will the turning movement be accommodated so traffic does not back up on Route 150? Andy, would you like to respond to that, please?
Sure thing, Sal. This is Andy again from Stantec. As Justin mentioned during his presentation, the bridge will be constructed in 2 stages. During both stages, we're going to maintain one lane of traffic in each direction during construction. That does, however, mean that we need to get rid of the turning lane during construction. And what we'll do is, as we're looking at the traffic signal, we'll take a look at the timing and the phasing of the signal, and it'll be retimed during construction. And there'll also be, while construction is going on, the staff out there will be looking at the traffic movements and the turning movements, and they can make adjustments as needed to ensure the traffic is flowing through the area on a good basis. Again, once the project is complete, the turning lane will be reinstated.
Thank you, Andy. I want to take a second to remind everyone, please take the survey. It will help us immensely in future presentations to the public through this virtual world that we are living on now. Thank you. We have another question that's come in through the phone. I'm sorry. We have an email question from Chief William Wright, the town of Wallingford. It states, as it relates to the 5-foot sidewalk install, I just want to make sure that your team is aware that there is also a plan to reconstruct the traffic light system at the intersection in another project. The install of the sidewalk is important to us. Thank you for including it. Chief Wright, we will coordinate with the other traffic signal project during construction. We want to make sure that the projects will be coordinated and the final product ends up being what the town desires for this project. Thank you for your question, sir. We have another question that has come in. For how long will we lose service during relocation of the utilities? Utility relocation will be necessary, as Justin indicated, during construction. And the reason for B is we have to have unimpeded access to the construction site. So therefore, the utility lines that are on the east side of the road would be moved to the west side when we're working on stage 1, and then consequently move back again when we work on stage 2. Similarly with the gas mains and the sewer main. Now, the work is done while the existing facilities are in service. The only downtime in service would be during the crossover of the utilities from one pole to the other, let's say. And that shouldn't take more than an hour or 2 for each utility. And that will be done independently of each utility. Each one will do their own work at any one time. So there should be no extended or significant service during the relocation of the utilities. Again, let me remind everyone, very important to us, please take the survey. As I mentioned earlier, it will help us for future presentations. There's another question that has come in. Is the bridge safe to drive over now? Should I be concerned? Mark, would you like to respond to that?
Sure, Sal. This is Mark Levesque from Close Jensen & Miller. Yes, the bridge is absolutely safe to drive over now. Each bridge in the state is inspected every 2 years. Some deficiencies were identified during one of the recent inspections for this bridge that led to us determining that a project was necessary to address the deficiencies. And that's what we're undertaking right now. The bridge will continue to be inspected as the design progresses. The frequency of these inspections can be increased to every year, every 6 months, or even every 3 months if deficiencies continue to worsen. But the main structural components on this bridge, which is the stone masonry arch and the reinforced concrete pipe culvert, are not what is driving this project, so there's no need for the traveling public to be concerned.
Thank you, Mark. We have another question that's come in. The question is, how long will construction last? Andy, would you like to handle that?
Sure, Sal. Again, this is Andy Lassard from Stantec. We anticipate this project to take one construction season, with the construction being roughly April through to November of 1 year. And again, that would be during two stages of work there. Thanks, Sal.
If I may add, we anticipate this project starting sometime in April or May of 2022 and be completed by at least the end of November of 2022. And basically the time will be split between stages. And of this nature, the project will go quicker, but don't forget, we have to have utility relocations that take a bit of time during construction. Please, again, I keep repeating, please take the survey. It's very important to us. Another question has come in, email question, and it says, I heard the bridge was built in the 1860s. Why not replace something so old? During the development of this project, we looked at several alternates. One of those alternates was replacing it, and with a couple of different possibilities. We looked at replacing the entire bridge with an 8-foot reinforced concrete pipe, and we also looked at reinforced at a clear span bridge that would be about 40 feet long. The reasons that we did not replace it are because the arch, even though there's deterioration, the deterioration is basically falling mortar, which is easily replaceable. As Justin had mentioned, we are reconstructing the southeast wing wall, and that's because of erosion, and the wall has fallen and is bulging, as shown on the photos. That's the reason why we'll reconstruct that. As you can tell, the erosion has also allowed trees to fall off the slope, and that's a bad thing because the roots usually stabilize slopes. So this is an indication that's very steep. Now, we didn't replace it, again, because the bridge is historic to begin with. It was built in the 1860s and extended in 1929. And it's in really good shape for all the usage that it has endured throughout the years. And arches are very strong construction. Replacing mortar is a very simple thing at low cost. And that's the reason why we did not agreed to replace this bridge.
Hey, Sal, this is Mark from CGM. Can I add something to that?
Absolutely, please, Mark.
Sure, and I just wanted to also mention that, you know, when we look at several alternatives, like Sal mentioned, different replacement alternatives, but we'll look at the condition of the existing structure, which Sal mentioned, the southeast retaining wall is a real issue. We look at all the initial construction costs for all the alternates, life cycle costs, like what it costs over the life of each structure, and do a comparison. We look at how simple the utility relocations, difficult site constraints, property impacts, traffic impacts, and then we select the most suitable alternative for the site. One of the other things that Sal mentioned is this is eligible for the National Register, the arch for the 1860s, and our proposed project will not cause an adverse effect to this historic property. A replacement alternative might. So that came into consideration. So I just wanted to mention that.
Thank you, Mark. I appreciate your input. There's another question that has come in, and it has to do with the tree that we show on the downstream. The question says, it came in by phone, please, by the way. It says, I see there's a tree across the channel downstream. Is that a problem? Will that be removed? The tree itself, as I mentioned earlier, has fallen due to erosion of the slopes because of their steepness. The slopes are about 1.5 to 1, what we call, which is very steep, which is at the limit of a stable slope. And as I mentioned earlier, the roots actually stabilize the slope, but as you get deterioration and the roots become exposed, the tree has fallen. Now, it has no impact to the serviceability of the bridge at this time. It doesn't affect it hydraulically. And during construction, that tree will be removed. We have another question that's come in by email. If this is just repairing an existing bridge, why does the state have to acquire property? The reason that we need to acquire the property is because the existing bridge right now sits on private property. In other words, it was built with a stone arch, extended in 1929 with the pipe because the roadway was widened, but the bridge sits currently on private property. The reason we need to acquire that portion is because for future maintenance and repairs, the department, the state will own the property that the bridge literally sits on, so that at any one time that can go in and do maintenance or repairs without having to acquire rights or property easements from the private property owners. Good question. Thank you for that.
And Sal, this is Matt Giannakopoulos from the DOT Rights Way. Just to add on to that a little bit, it's this is such an old bridge, and this is somewhat common with these old bridges that they predate the DOT, they predate when they established the highway lines, and sometimes when they drew the highway lines, they didn't always capture these old structures. So when we come across them in projects, we like to clean it up, if you will, to make it, so it's clear to the owners, to the public that, this facility, this structure is owned and maintained by the DOT. And as we move forward in the design, we get closer to starting the right-of-way process. We call it a title search. We examine the land records. So it's possible that the department already has some existing rights to maintain this structure, and we won't need to acquire any property. I don't expect that to be the case because our surveyors usually find it, but something this old, it may be out there. So that's just a possibility. But thanks, Sal.
Thank you for your explanation.
Sal, this is Andy from Stantec again, just to jump onto that one as well. Part of the reason that we'll be looking at needing some property rights is because of the work that we're doing to soften the slopes that Sal, you had talked about previously with the relating to the tree and the stabilization. We're going to be softening the slopes a little bit beyond where currently the property line is depicted. So again, we would need to have some rights to be able to do that as well.
Thank you, Andy. Again, I want to remind everyone about our survey. Please access the survey and fill it out. Not only do we have it on the DOT website, there's also a link on the YouTube version. So if you're watching on YouTube, please take the survey. It will help us in the future with these presentations. I see that we have another email question. The question is, who is paying for this project? Susan, would you like to take that, please? I'm sorry. As I meant to say, as Sue mentioned earlier, the project is federally funded. That means that it is 80% federal funding and 20% state funding. There will be no participation by the town monetarily on this project. Thank you for that question. Hello, please let me remind you again that we will be here until you stop asking questions or commenting on the project. I want to remind everyone that you can ask questions by email. at the DOT project 148-212 or by telephone at 860-944-1111. As some of you have been doing through the MS Teams live event chat is great. Also, please remember that the question period will be open until November 5th. At that point, you can ask questions by email or by telephone. The chat portion of the live event is only open for tonight during the presentation, unfortunately. Again, I remind again, please take the survey. It will help us in the future. We have another question that's come in by phone. The question is, any idea what a replacement would cost? Yes, as I mentioned earlier, we looked at replacement options. Those options were an 8-foot concrete pipe or a 40-foot clear span bridge. The associated costs estimated with each one were approximately $6 million for the 8-foot concrete pipe and approximately $8 million for the clear span bridge. Now, two different structures, and you would say, why such disparity? And the reason for that is because the structure sits under about 25 feet of dirt roadway and has very many utilities embedded within it. So digging that deep, excavating that deep to access a work site becomes very expensive. The bridge option, it's a little bit cheaper because we can span a little bit longer than the 8-foot, and there is bedrock that's within the project. And what happens in this location is the bedrock basically dips where the crossing for the bridge is. So when we extend our bridge to 40 feet, we can install piles as they are, but then we can build our bridge a little bit higher than it is. Still would be deep because of the utilities, but the excavation wouldn't be as much. And that's the reason for the disparity in prices. As Mark had mentioned, we did the life cycle cost analysis for all alternates. And because of the condition of the existing bridge, it was more cost efficient to go in with a repair option. Thank you for that question. I want to remind everybody again about the survey. There's a link on our chat. There's also a link on the YouTube version of the presentation and on the website for the project. So please take a minute. It's a very brief survey and it will help us in the future. I don't see any more questions that are coming in, so I think we'll stay another few minutes, and if nothing else comes in, we want to thank you, all of you, for participating in this presentation tonight. Hopefully we answer some of your questions. Hopefully we take into account all that you've asked and we answer all your questions satisfactorily. And as I said, if not, please, or if there's additional follow-up questions, don't forget, the comment period is still open until November 5th through the telephone line at 860-944-1111 or by email at dotproject148-212@ct.gov. Hello, I don't see any questions coming in. Hopefully we satisfied all your comments, all your questions, all your thoughts. If not, as I said, please, anytime between now and November 5th, send us your questions. We'll be more than happy to answer them and provide you with a response. Any other thoughts that come in after a response, again, please go back through the email or through the phone line and ask a follow-up question if need be. And again, do not forget the survey. It's very important to us. I don't see any more questions coming in, so I think we will wrap up tonight's presentation. Again, thank you everybody for attending.